I received a game key for Remnants of the Rift from Mooncat Games for review purposes. Remnants of the Rift is developed by Bromeo and published by Mooncat Games, with Bromeo self-publishing on some platforms. After launching in early access on May 4th, 2023, the game reached its full release on PC and Nintendo Switch on May 29th, 2025, followed by PlayStation 5 and Xbox on November 18th, 2025. Roguelites are everywhere, and standing out in such a crowded genre is no small task. But Remnants of the Rift immediately distinguishes itself through its hybrid real-time action and grid-based tactics, wrapped in a striking retro-futuristic presentation. It's a confident, inventive game that takes real swings with its ideas, even if not every one of them lands cleanly. The story unfolds gradually rather than being front-loaded, revealing itself through repeated runs and conversations rather than long cutscenes. Set during a golden age of technological advancement, the world is suddenly complicated by the appearance of a neighboring unstable dimension. Whether this collision is coincidence or a direct result of unchecked innovation is left deliberately unclear. You play as Morgan, a mercenary with the rare ability to slip between realities, tasked with diving into the Bast, a liminal space between worlds, to uncover its secrets and rescue a close friend. The character interactions do a solid job of building intrigue and establishing stakes, but the writing occasionally leans a bit too hard into obvious exposition. There are moments where dialogue feels less like natural conversation and more like the game pausing to explain itself, which slightly undercuts the otherwise appealing world building. Structurally, Remnants of the Rift is a pure roguelite, and it fully commits to that identity. Progression is slow and grind-heavy, especially in the opening hours, where it can feel like you are barely inching forward despite repeated attempts. Each run follows a familiar loop. Head out on missions laid out across a grid-based map, gather materials, inevitably fail, return to base, and invest in incremental upgrades before diving back in. Early on, this cadence can feel like busy work, but once additional systems unlock and you begin to understand the game's deeper mechanics, the experience opens up in more interesting ways. The sense of mastery comes less from raw stat increases, and more from learning how the game wants you to think and move. The home base acts as a central hub tying all these systems together. From here, you gain access to a workbench that allows you to swap and upgrade abilities, ranging from deployable mines to crowd-control tools like Pulse, which temporarily stuns enemies. Requisitions let you purchase run-specific upgrades when they appear. Mercenaries' Renown provides persistent buffs such as starting runs with extra materials, and mission contracts serve as your gateway back into the Bast. This structure remains consistent throughout the game, which is both a strength and a weakness. The familiarity makes the systems easy to understand over time, but it also means the overall flow never truly changes, even as new powers and enemies are introduced. Combat takes place in square-based arenas where positioning and timing are everything. Enemies spawn from dimensional rifts and immediately pressure both Morgan and the Modulator, an object that effectively serves as her lifeline. While Morgan cannot permanently die and will always respawn, allowing the Modulator's health to drop to 0 ends the run. Movement is deliberate, with dashes and abilities needing to be used thoughtfully to control space and manage threats. The game's rhythm takes time to click, but once it does, the push and pull of pausing, planning, and executing actions can be genuinely engaging, especially as more abilities come into play. Each successful wave offers a choice of rewards that shape the next stage of the run. You might stock up on prana or techno junk for future shops, gamble on utility chips that permanently alter abilities for the duration of the run, or visit Rhodes' lab to sacrifice one ability in order to significantly boost another. When the systems align, the result can feel fantastic, with powerful synergies letting you glide through encounters with confidence. However, the margin for error is thin. A single risky decision or poorly understood mechanic can end a promising run almost instantly. This is particularly frustrating early on, when unfamiliar enemy types and environmental hazards can sabotage you before you fully grasp how they work. In that sense, Remnants of the Rift embraces the genre's harshest tendencies, for better and for worse. Enemy variety is one of the game's stronger points. You'll face everything from slow-moving blob creatures to explosive rushers, long-range attackers, and larger foes that leap across the arena, triggering chain reactions through multiple tiles. Some enemies manipulate the battlefield directly, reversing controls or restricting actions within certain zones. Every enemy telegraphs its next move through visible cooldowns and directional indicators, giving you the information needed to plan ahead. Enemies can even damage each other, adding another tactical layer. On paper, the system is elegant, but in practice, the sheer number of variables, enemy behaviors, environmental traps like holes or sticky tiles, and procedural layouts can quickly turn encounters into chaotic messes. When a run fails due to factors that feel outside of your control, that chaos shifts from thrilling to aggravating. One of the more persistent issues is that despite unlocking new abilities and encountering fresh enemy types, the player's role never meaningfully evolves. You are always engaging with the same core loop in the same way. Over time, this can create a numbing effect, especially if a string of failed runs sends you back to the start with only marginal improvements to show for it. For players who enjoy roguelites in their most uncompromising mechanical form, this purity will be appealing. For others, the repetition may wear thin before the game fully reveals its depth. Visually, Remnants of the Rift is consistently impressive. Its cel-shaded retro-futuristic art style gives the world a distinctive identity, with bold character designs and neon-soaked environments that make the Bast feel both alien and inviting. The interface is clean, readable, and expressive, tying the presentation together with a confident sense of style. It is a game that looks self-assured in its aesthetic choices, and that visual clarity helps enormously during the most hectic encounters. The audio design takes a more unconventional route. The soundtrack leans heavily into a lo-fi, funk-infused groove that perfectly complements the game's 70s-inspired sci-fi vibe. Notably, the music carries almost the entire soundscape. Outside of subtle menu sounds, there are no combat effects, no transition cues, and no voice work. This absence is initially jarring, but over time it becomes part of the game's identity. Whether this was the right choice is debatable, but it is at least a deliberate one, and the strength of the music helps sell the atmosphere even when everything else is silent. In the end, Remnants of the Rift is a game I enjoyed, though not without reservations. Its randomness can feel more punishing than rewarding, and the progression systems demand a level of patience that not every player will have. The difficulty curve is unpredictable, and the lack of broader audio feedback remains an unusual design decision. Still, when the systems click and a run comes together, the experience is sharp, tense, and deeply satisfying. Its visual style and willingness to experiment give it a strong sense of personality, and that uniqueness goes a long way. For fans of roguelites who appreciate a more stripped-down, uncompromising approach, Remnants of the Rift is an easy recommendation, provided you are willing to meet it on its own terms. It's a flawed but compelling entry in a crowded genre, one that earns attention through identity rather than imitation. I give Remnants of the Rift a 7 out of 10.